Welcome to the FI Investors Podcast, helping you achieve financial independence through real estate investing, one episode at a time. We talk about personal finance, mindset, and real estate investing. Whether you're a rookie or looking to scale your portfolio, we're here to provide you with the tactics and actionable steps to achieve your goals. Here are your hosts, Diego Corzo and Ward Mahoney.
What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the FI Investors Podcast. My name is Diego Corzo, and I am here as your host. Today, we have an incredible guest. His name is Julio Monagas. I got the privilege to meet him back in 2019. He literally called me randomly out of the blue after he heard my podcast on BiggerPockets back then, and he said how my story resonated with him. Fast forward 4 years later, he has an incredible story on how he's been able to invest in real estate locally, also out of state. He has a place in Puerto Rico, how he's investing over there in an Airbnb. He also how he quit his W-2 job. Now he's being a realtor full-time with Realty of America. He's going to be sharing a bit of his journey, a bit of how he got started and what his goals are now as he is putting the money to work within real estate for his business to scale and all of that. So you guys are in for a treat. Now, for any of you that are looking to start 2025 the right way, we have the mastermind, the FI Investor Mastermind. If you're looking for accountability, if you're looking for a group to help you achieve your real estate goals for 2025, and you're looking for a community of like-minded individuals on their path to financial independence, then check out the website, thefiinvestors.com, so you can get more information there and schedule a call with me and my team. So without further ado, let's jump on the FI Investor Podcast with Julio Monagas. What's up, Julio? Welcome to the FI Investors Podcast. How are you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing awesome. Excited to have you here. I know you have an incredible story. We've been working together as well for, let's say, I think for now 3 years. But I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then like where you are now, and then I want to share back to like when we met and everything, because it is an incredible story of somebody who makes a decision, takes the action, and that one single action has changed that trajectory of your life, which is something that people may have had that opportunity or they want to do something. At the end of the day, it's one action. And that fear of people like, oh, what happens if they don't respond, or if they don't do it, or if it doesn't come out the way that I want to? People just have that fear, but you didn't have that. So I'm going to talk about that later. But for right now, tell us where you are today, what do you do, and all that good stuff.
Okay. Awesome. So yeah, I mean, today I'm a full-time real estate agent. I was actually doing the math, and I've only been a full-time real estate agent for like 2 years and like 9 months, 10 months, something like that, which is crazy. I'm a top producer in the Nino team. I went from today, you're asking today. So yeah, I'm one of the top producers on the Nino team, if not probably number one. Each year I've been able to sell more homes, and this year is it is my best year, inching closer to 50 homes for this year. That's awesome. And yeah, doing great. Yeah.
And you also are a real estate investor. You
Yes.
own, how many properties do you own? And I know that you just went under contract on one other one.
Yeah, so that's how I started, and we'll go back to that. So yeah, I'm also a real estate investor. I have 4 homes here in the Austin area, and just added a 5th one, which should be closing here in January. And then I have an Airbnb in Puerto Rico. and then own part of a small business as well out in Arizona. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So basically, your what's cool about real estate, it's one of those things that you can make money actively, right, as a
Mhm.
realtor, but you
Mhm.
can also make money passively through investments. It's one of those asset classes that one can decide to do both. And both
Mhm.
can be very lucrative, one building wealth and some passive income, and the other one building your active income. So, and it's been really cool to see the progress and the progression of you now selling 50 homes. So, or more, and can't wait to see what 2025 is going to do. So,
I know. I know.
yeah. So take
Excited.
us back, Julio. Tell us a little bit about who is Julio, like your little bit of your story, and we'll get to also how we got connected.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what got us connected is because, my story is somewhat similar to yours. So basically, I'm an immigrant, just like you. I know sometimes people can't tell because I guess somehow I was able to work through my accent. But basically, I was born in Venezuela. I moved here when I was 14, going into 15. I moved to a very small town at the time, a very small town north of Dallas. I didn't know any English. My dad honestly got a job here in the US, and he was like, "Hey, you want to come to the US, study English for a year, and then you can go back home?" And I was like, "Sure, we'll give it a try." At that time in Venezuela, things were still okay, or actually way better than they are now. We didn't expect what was going to happen in the last 20 years, right? So yeah, of course, I'll go back, or I'll go to the US, learn English, and then go back. Well, life happened. My dad lost his job. We lost status, legal status, both of us, because I was an extension of his visa. And so we were technically undocumented well, he was undocumented for about a year and a half, 2 years. And I ended up being undocumented for almost 7 years. Right before I turned 21, we were able to find a loophole to have my stepmom basically give me citizenship. So if I had not been able to do that, I'd probably still be undocumented or whatever. I'd be back in Venezuela. But anyways, so that happened. It made the best of it. I couldn't drive. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. So I depended on my friends to get everywhere. But then as soon as I got my papers, it was like a new life began, right? So I was able to go to college. I bought my new car. I worked my ass off for a long time. I went to school, got my bachelor's. Then I actually went to graduate school and got my doctorate in physical therapy. Um, and then, anyways, through life happens, I was like, man, I just feel like I want something more, right? And that's where the whole rich dad, poor dad came into the picture, the FI movement, the financial independence, or FIRE movement, I should say, financial independence, retire early, and then stumble upon to BiggerPockets, and then obviously heard your podcast. This was in 2019, heard your podcast. And I had been traveling with my career, like pretty much all over the West Coast in the US. But it was time to come home and kind of set some roots. And home at that time is here in Austin. So, anyways, this is what's crazy. I heard your podcast on the drive back from Oregon, all the way out on the West Coast, because I wanted to invest and I wanted to get educated. And I was like, oh man, he lives in Austin. I was like, maybe I'll reach out to him. I was like, no, maybe he doesn't have time. And so a couple of weeks went by. I met my girlfriend, now my fiance at the time. And she was like, you know what? You should just give him a call. Like your stories are like almost exactly the same in a way. And anyways, I gave you a call, was not expecting you to answer. And then obviously you challenged me right away and you're like, hey, can you meet me here at 7 a.m. on a Saturday? And I was like, yeah, sure. And you were probably not expecting me to show up or show up late or something. And then I will say this, and obviously we'll get into more, like that meeting changed the trajectory of my life in the last 3 to 4 years completely, completely. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy because I remember where I was going whenever you called me. I was showing homes, You called me and I was like, sure, let's talk for 5 minutes, but we ended up talking for like 15 that one time,
Yeah.
uh, or or longer. And then I was like, okay, because I was getting lots of calls after that podcast went out. It was episode 352 on BiggerPockets 2019.
Hmm.
And I remember you called me and I was like, okay, well, I know I'm gonna be at this coffee shop. So might as well, if you show up, great. If not, I'll continue doing what I'm doing because I know I had to work that morning. So it worked out perfect. And you showed up and you told me a little bit about your goals that you wanted to house hack, and of course
Hmm.
how you and I had a very similar story. So it was really cool to be able to meet. But it's interesting that you mentioned a little bit earlier the fact that you were undocumented, right? And that you got that, like once you got your papers and everything, it's like you could you feel like it was like a whole new life, right? And
Yeah.
with me too, when I was like fully without DACA or any protection or anything, it's like you mentioned that you had your friends driving you to
Yeah.
places. I had my friends and Pascal, he's one of my best friends, and he would drive me literally like everywhere to the point that I needed to get a ride to Austin to help me move. And he was like, dude, I'll do it because he was on his way to Colorado. So it's always like those friends, those people
Yeah.
who help us along the way, that it's always good
Yeah.
to like say thanks, right,
Yeah.
to them. Because without them, life would have been even more difficult. And I feel like with us immigrants, no matter what our status is, I feel like we have a lot of potential, and it's
Hmm.
not until we get that little extra help, because
Hmm.
we could be successful. And I mean, you also have like you went after you got your papers and everything, you went to college and everything, feel that career that you really wanted to do it, right? You
Hmm.
have a PhD too, and all of that. Whether you're practicing with that PhD or not, it's not the main thing. It is more that you set your goal and you got it,
Hmm.
right? And so, okay, so then you met me, and I know that you wanted at that meeting, it was a little bit more on the for me to help you on
House
financial
hack.
independence, house hack as a realtor. And we had a conversation. So what happened then? Because one of the cool parts about it is that we like you have your duplex, like you
Hmm.
have some properties, and
Hmm.
then you change careers. But first, let's talk about a little bit
Yeah.
of the properties, and then we'll get into the career change, because I know it's something that a lot of people think that hey, I wonder how it might go for me if I get my license too. But you were able to do it.
Yeah. So at that time, I mean, becoming a realtor was not even in my radar, like whatsoever. It was just more about how do I become an investor? How do I become financially independent through that vehicle? And how can I get more homes? So obviously the very first step was house hacking a duplex, which at the time prices, as you know, prices in Austin were still reasonable. Well, I guess it depends how you look at it, but duplexes
Yeah,
were
to a
a lot
certain
more.
extent, they were
Yeah,
reasonable at that time to a certain extent.
to a certain extent, exactly. So, well, what's funny is that new construction was starting to come up, and I remember we went and took a look at it. You know, for people that don't know, just a neighborhood in Southeast Austin called Colorado Crossing. Put a home under contract, a brand new home that I was going to house hack the rooms, right? Because I learned through house hacking through that meeting that you told me get a home with at least 4 bedrooms and 2.5 bath. Having that half bathroom is huge when you're house hacking. So I was like, sure, that's what I'll do. So put it under contract as it was building. Actually, no, from scratch. I just picked the lot and then picked the home. And what's crazy is that home, I think we bought it for $280,000, which is nuts. For people that don't know the Austin market, that is nuts. So anyways, did that. And then I was like, you know what, Diego, like at the time I was 30 something years old, and I was like, man, I don't know if I want to have roommates. How about we get a duplex instead? And so I started looking at duplex, and I remember it to this day. I saw it on Zillow. I was like, Diego, what do you think about this? And you were like, immediately, you're like, let's go take a look at it. We looked at it. It had been in the market maybe like 3 or 4 days, and we put it on their contract the next day. And that by far, as an investor, that's been one of the best experiences that I've ever had as far as learning how to talk to contractors, learning how to quote things, fixing things. How much do things really take to fix? Um, how to evaluate a property. Is this actually a good potential? And I messed up so much, but I also took massive action. I mean, I was in that duplex fixing thing. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm not handy at all whatsoever. I would YouTube it. I would talk to the contractor. Hey, how would you do this? Just try to learn it on my own as much as I could. And that's why it was probably one of the best experiences. I also messed up a lot. Like I probably put too much money into it looking back. But I learned so much from buying that duplex and taking action. And I don't know if you want to mention, but we ended up buying that Colorado Crossing together,
Yeah.
which was also a great buy. So in a matter of from meeting you to fast forwarding like a year and a half, maybe I had
Mhm.
two properties. So
Yeah, total of three doors. And here's the one thing, and I'll share a little bit of this is what school is. What's important for anybody that's looking to house hack or buy an investment property is to find an investor-friendly realtor.
mhm,
And at this point, the investor-friendly realtor happened to be me back in 2019, 2020. And the key thing here is finding solutions, right? Because the new construction, and this is something that's very important for the audience, is back in 2020, you could put a home under contract that was new construction, earnest money for just $500 or $1,000. Literally.
mhm,
You can put it under
mhm,
contract and then you can close 8, 9 months later. If you
mhm,
wanted to back out, all you would lose was 500 or $1,000. So I had told Julio, we put it under contract, right? And well, he put that new build under contract with me as a realtor. And when he told me about the duplex, I was like, look, let's not back out
mhm.
of the duplex of the new build because of the fact that it was only $1,000. I believe it was a
Right,
thousand on that one. So I was like, we can figure it out because we still have months later. And because I know you told me that you made that why don't we just back out? And I was like, hey,
mhm,
let's not do that yet because
right,
we don't know what can happen. We can always figure it out. You can always add somebody to be an investor from like
right,
a family member or something because we it's okay losing that opportunity as a new build, but I wanted to lose that at the end, not midway through when so many things can change.
right. Which that was the thought. I remember I had my uncle and my stepdad at the time. They were wanting to buy that home with me, and then things happened with them, and it didn't come to fruition. And then that's where you came in, and you're like, dude, let's buy it together because obviously it ended up being an amazing deal.
Yes.
Um, and and then if you go a couple, and again, I hadn't even been thinking about becoming a realtor, but being around you and being around kind of the FI tribe, well, at that time it was rat race, but being around investors and like, how do you become a person of value, right? And I remember that how wholesalers have, they call them bird dogs, or what are
Bird
they?
dogs, bird
Bird
dogging.
dogs. So I was so excited about this because new construction was still kind of up and coming in Austin at that time, not to the scale that it is now. And we kind of figure out a hack, right? Do you remember if you
Yeah.
could buy the home in the first phase of the community, by the time you're done building it, you have 50, 60, 70, 80, $90,000 of equity. So I would work my W-2 either after work or on the weekends. I would literally drive all around town, try to find these new construction spots during the first phase. And then I would be like, Diego, this is where the next phase or the other community's at. So I would try to bring him value in a way, um, in that at the same time I would be able to sit down with him and learn more about investing and things like that. So
Yeah, yeah, and that's something that's really important because you were one of at that point you were one of those clients, of course, that later turned into friends and now business partners and everything, but that you would just call me and be like, "Hey, I found this one. Like, think about it for your other clients, blah blah blah." So
yeah.
you were giving me that knowledge base too. And one of the things that's important too is that whenever we were going to cancel the contract, right? Because you told me, Diego, I cannot find anybody for the new build. Let's just cancel it. I called the builder and I remember having that conversation and I was like, hey, we're gonna have to cancel the contract. Julio cannot find a partner right now. But before you put it on the contract, I just want to know before we cancel the contract, I just want to know how much you're going to put it back on the market for. So we had it on the contract for around 280. And he tells me we're going to put it on the market for 320. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're leaving for. By that time, I already imagined we. It wasn't you leaving money. So I'm like, we're leaving money on the table. So I asked him, how possible would it be for me as his realtor to come in as a business partner to buy this property? And he was like, well, we'll just need to add you on title, talk to the lender, see if you qualify together, and boom. So I called Julio and I was like, Julio, I know it didn't work out with your family to see if they can be investors, but maybe I can come in. This is how we can create that partnership. And I remember you're like, all right, let's do it.
That's right. And
yeah,
something to point out where, for your audience, like if you don't have the money at that time, which I didn't, I was working my W-2 and I was trying to fix this duplex and all my money was going into the duplex. And I was like, Diego, I don't have the money. And he's like, hey, it's okay. I have the money, but if you don't have the money, find the deal. And I know that you guys hear this all the time. And then also manage the deal because you have to bring some sweat equity into the deal. Obviously, you have the money guy, and then you have to do everything that you can for him not to have to worry about this deal because he's the one with the risk in the deal. Because I technically have, or actually almost zero money in the deal. Yeah. And so really the risk is on Diego on this end. And so how can I bring value to that? So I manage to this day, I still manage that property. And then any calls, Diego doesn't hear about it. The only thing that he gets is just a report at the end of the year with expenses, income, and then that's it. But that is the value. If you don't have any money, that is the value that you need to bring to anybody that does have the money at that time.
Yes, exactly. And at that point, that's what I call the unfair advantage of a partnership. And I always tell people there's 4 unfair advantages in a partnership. It's either money, time, network, or the knowledge, right? And at this point, I was the one that brought in the money, and then Julio brought in the time because he's managing the deal, and also he brought the deal per se to me as an investor. And he's basically my boots on the ground. Even though we're both in the same city, he's the one that takes the calls and everything. He manages the property. But I saw it as an opportunity because if the builder was going to put back that property at 320, I'm like, if I just put all the down payment, which was 20%, I was like, my net worth will automatically go up 20,000. And because the agreement was that you and I would go in 50-50 into this deal, I will put in the cash and we split the whatever's left of the equity 50-50. So I saw it as me getting 20. And then during that big hype, that property, of course, appreciated. I don't know exactly how much it's worth right now, but it's definitely
I can tell you it's worth right now in this market, it's worth about 440, 450.
All right.
At the peak, it was over 500,000.
Yeah, that is crazy. Over 500,000. And so 440, let's say, and we bought it for 280. So that's a good $160,000 worth of equity.
Diego's brain now, he's like, man, what can we do with that equity?
Right. Oh my gosh. Yes. So that's what's cool. And imagine that it cost Julio $1,000 earnest money and then created a partnership, right? And that is just put it under contract. That's what we always say. Just put it on the contract and you can figure it out. So you got the duplex, and really quick, that duplex, how much down payment did you actually need to buy that property?
That's what was crazy. I think total, just the down payment, I think it was no more than $10,000. I think, and I don't remember. I know it was no more than $12,000, something like that,
Mhm.
which was essentially part of most of my savings at that time.
Mhm.
But I was like, I'm getting, a duplex. I'm gonna have income from the other side, which offsets my mortgage. It didn't cover it completely, but it covered more than half of the mortgage.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was about $10,000.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So with $10,000 plus maybe some closing costs, you were
Right.
able to buy that duplex. Of course, you put in some money to like to fix,
Yes.
update it a little bit. Now, how much is that one worth when you look at?
That one is almost $500,000 worth, and I bought it for 340.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. It's great.
And you were living there. Then we partner up and we bought another new build, right?
So with this other one, so again, I was a bird dog, so to speak, at this time. This is now fast forward to like 21, 22, no, 21, 2021. And again, I was like, hey, I have my W-2. I want to, get more properties. How do I do? I don't have a ton of money. All my money's in the duplex. And so I just started driving around like weekends after work. I was like, how can I, this is a hack that we had here in Austin, an unfair advantage in a way that we had here in Austin. And how can we find these new developments in the very first phase or even before they break ground, get in, buy the dirt, and by the time the home's being built, you have $100,000 worth of equity, which we can talk about what we did with that home with that equity. But anyways, I found this community. And I told Diego, and I remember Andres as well. And I think you guys, as realtors, were able to help a ton of investors in that community as well.
Mhm.
I'm still waiting for my royalty checks from that.
Ay,
Uh,
ay, ay.
no, but I was able to do the same. And I will say again to your audience, like the unfair advantage that I had, because I remember that home is just under my name. Here's the other thing. If you have an investor with money, but they're not bankable at the time because maybe their DTI is too high, and you are, guess what our interest rate is in that home? Because I was bankable at the time. Diego was not able to get it under his name. So he was like, hey, dude, put it under your name. I'll put in the money again. We were able to lock in a 2.75% interest rate. So it made total sense. And that home cash flows, I think, about $400 to $500 a month, which is pretty good for Austin. Um,
Can you repeat that interest rate again?
2.75% interest rate. Yeah.
Amazing.
So we're never getting rid of that house. Or at least I don't want to. So again, my unfair advantage was that I was bankable. I found the community in the first phase. So we were able to build up that equity. Obviously, Diego had the money again. He brought in the money. And so we both were able to help each other out. And then I guess you can tell them what we ended up doing with that equity if you want to.
Yeah, yeah. So really quick though, that this is one of the powers of like of the mastermind of a community of being able to work with other investors because once Julio told me about this new community, one of the things that we always talk about at the FI Investors calls, which are every Monday, we talk about any wins. And so we shared how we found this new community, how we went under
Oh, yeah.
contract, and we have helped multiple members from FI investors buy there as an investment property. And it has been really cool to see that even when I told my mentors too from GoBundance,
Yeah.
they also bought properties there. So it was a really cool time of just us being able to buy multiple properties within that community, but seeing the opportunity and of course with the appreciation and everything worked out well. And then what we did then is because of the fact that we bought it for, I believe we bought it for
Three.
305 or something.
Yeah, it was like 301, like 300,000 essentially.
300.
Yeah.
Yeah, 300,000. During that time, by the time that we closed on it, it was worth 400, right?
Hmm.
And when
Hmm.
we did, then we waited 6 months so that Julio can take out a HELOC. It
Hmm.
appraised at 440. So we
Yeah.
were able to take out a line of credit of around
100,000. Yeah.
$100,000 line of credit. And again, that property, 2.75 interest rate, and it was $1,000 for earnest money as well.
Yeah.
So this is what's crazy. And imagine that we did not want that house later, like before we close. We would have just lost $1,000 and that's it. But the
Right.
idea here is that we took that chance of how we can figure it out.
Mhm.
And then now we have now 20% of 300,000, it's around 60K.
Mhm.
I put up the money, and with that, 6 months later, we had a line of credit of 100,000. They're just freaking crazy.
Yeah.
So that is the power of getting into these kinds of deals. And then we had other members buy in too from the community and everything.
Yeah.
That
And they've
is
been successful in that community. One of them successfully midterm rents one of the houses. So yeah, we were able to help more people because, as you said, the power of the tribe, the power of the mastermind.
yeah.
So
Yeah. So let's really quick. So then now you have a property in you just went under contract
yeah,
on a new build.
yes,
So you're repeating that same process again, but you're seeing the opportunity because this
right,
one is not in Austin proper, but it is
right.
in Taylor. So share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I mean, for those of you that don't know, I mean, in the Austin area, it's more of an appreciation play because again, the market has gone up so much that anytime investors want to invest in Austin, we tell them that it's more of a either you have to put a considerable amount down, 40%, 50% to cash flow, or you just want appreciation and you're just looking at, 15, 20 years, you take that depreciation of that house because you have a high active income. So it depends on what your strategy is. But this weekend, so again, fast forward now, I'm a real estate agent. And I got word about this community that's literally across the street from Samsung. So Samsung is building the biggest chip microchip plant in the world in Taylor, Texas. It's a $17 billion investment. $17 billion, a huge plant. Well, it turns out that this particular builder just opened up this community with homes under $300,000. But I was like, well, in the Austin area, even if you're under $300,000, it's still hard to cash flow. But the catch is that I found out that they were offering investors a 4.99 fixed rate for 30 years. So you're under $300,000, a 4.99 fixed for 30 years, and you're across the street from Samsung. So I thought, hey, we have to go take a look at this. So I have a family member that was interested in investing. He saw it. He saw the product. He found out it was a 4.99. He was like, I want one. I may want two. So he's thinking about buying another one. And then I was like, man, and this is why, I was like, I've had a good year. I want to treat myself to something. And I was thinking about buying something that doesn't really have any value. And I was like, you know what? Why don't I buy a house? Now I have the ability to do it on my own. Fast forward 3 years. And so I'm officially going under contract because the home is not only going to cash flow, but it's also in a up and coming area. If you see that area, it's like seeing Pflugerville 10, 15 years ago. They're building a brand new highway that's going to connect you from basically Pflugerville up to Hutto and then Georgetown. And if you can see 10, 15 years down the line, I think this is going to be a great investment. So yeah, that's why I decided to take that next step.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. I feel like it's definitely one of those things that you have to see the opportunity. You have to
Mm-hmm.
trust a little bit the opportunity of being able to like to see the growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And understand that there's this big community
Mm-hmm.
that Samsung, like there's this big opportunity that Samsung's coming in. And what I see is when somebody big, like a big company, comes into play, other companies are also gonna come.
Exactly.
And like I moved to Austin at General Motors, like so that I could work for General Motors back in the day. And it was one of those things that GM is there. There was Intel. There's like three other companies. Dell was there. So things will just piggyback on that. And I feel like this is definitely going to be one of those things where it will come up. And I know that you just shared about this community and the incentives. This is what's so good is that your investor-friendly realtor, and again,
Right.
Julio, for example, he went from me being the investor friendly realtor for Julio to now Julio being the investor friendly realtor for himself. So if anybody's interested in investing in Austin, Texas metro area, reach out to Julio because this is definitely going to be an opportunity where you as an investor can get a property at 4.99 interest rate and it will be fixed. So interest rates right now can be at 6, 7, 8, whatever for
Seven, yeah.
investors.
Or
All
more.
of a sudden now you can get into this property at 4.99. So it's something that's really good. Now, really quick, and then we'll get into one other part, but you also own a property in Puerto Rico
Yeah.
where you went in as an investor. Give us in 1 to 2 minutes, just give us a little glimpse about that property and how you were one of the investors.
Yeah, so Puerto Rico, especially after Maria, the hurricane, that there's been a lot of incentives going into the island for people to invest, right? So it's become a very investor friendly territory of the U.S. And then, of course, through Diego and his mastermind, I found out how freaking cool Puerto Rico is and how amazing it is down there and the vibe and everything that you can do. And the people are just amazing. And it reminds me a lot of back home in Venezuela too. So anyways, I ended up going a couple of times. Obviously, through the mastermind, I was able to meet an investor that Roberto, for the people that don't know, that had a property under contract with a huge potential. So this happens to be a home literally sitting on top of a hill that you can from the home you can see all the way out to the ocean. You're about 25 minutes from the ocean, but you can see all the way to the coast. So amazing view, amazing property. It did need a ton of work, but I saw the vision of it's sitting, I think, in almost 2 acres. So there's a potential also to develop the land. So that's where I was seeing the vision and the future of it.
Mhm.
So yeah, so now I'm in a position where I can invest, and so I saw an opportunity to. I've never invested in an Airbnb, so this would end up becoming an Airbnb, which is cash flowing as we speak. And so I reached out to Roberto. I said, "Hey, I'm interested," and yeah, I ended up investing, and it's been live now for I think 5 or 6 months, maybe longer, and it's cash flowing consistently. And the the long term vision is to develop the land and then build like a casita community, and then that's only going to bring more income and more cash flow. So,
Mhm.
yeah, saw the opportunity. Now I have the ability to invest a little bit more money, so I said, why not?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's awesome. And those are some of the opportunities that come up by being around other investors, by being around a community where people are actively growing, actively investing. And Puerto Rico is one of those places that it is definitely a fun place to be. Amazing people, amazing vibes, like you said. And yeah, and we're gonna be in Puerto Rico for the FI Investors Retreat, February 20th through the 24th in 2025. So if anybody's interested, definitely let me know.
If
Julio has gone there the last 2 times that we've done it.
Every time, yeah. I will say if you're a kind of new and you're not sure if you want to go, I will say that I found that deal through there. People have made connections through that mastermind because you really get to interact with people one on one. You get to know them better. You get to know their, who they are, where they come from. And then through that mastermind as well, and then another one that you had here in the Austin area, I was able to invest in a small business out in Arizona. So it's these retreats, these mastermind that allow you to have access to these opportunities. So if you're kind of like lost, either if you have the money or you have the time and the energy and you don't know what to do, like just get around these people, right? That have the experience or may have the deal. And these are the times where you have that access to these people and be able to connect and learn more, and then also have a little bit of fun because they're a lot of fun as well.
Yes, yes, for sure, for sure. And so one of the things, Julio, too, is that you had a transition
Mhm.
from as a real estate investor, the opportunity for you to get your license came up, and we've been working together as part of the team for the last couple of years. And can you share a little bit about your transition from working full time with your career, something that you've been doing for a while? And
Mhm.
because I want people to listen to this part, because it's really important to know that no matter what your background is, no matter what your career is, if you want an opportunity to work full time in real estate, you should take the leap if you're willing to commit like Julio did. So share a little bit about that transition.
Yeah, I mean, W-2, I put a lot of sweat, money, and effort into my career. I kind of hit a ceiling with it, and I didn't see any more progress or development in it, and I kind of just lost touch with it. And I obviously fell in love with real estate and everything that it had to offer. So I was like, man, I reached out to Diego. I was like, why don't I become a realtor? Just to see what happens. And yeah, I mean, it was a tough transition, but it's honestly the best decision that I've ever made. It hasn't been easy
Mhm.
at all, but it's definitely been worth it. And yeah, like Diego mentioned, the first year I was working my W-2 full time, and then I was also working as a real estate agent. And for people that are agents out there, you know that you cannot do this part time. You have to do it full time. So essentially, if you want to be successful, of course you can do it part time and just have a couple of deals here and there. But if you really want to be a top agent, you have to go in 100%. And so I was working my W-2 full time, and then I was like, quickly realized that if I wanted to be successful, I had to do this full time. So what I ended up doing, I remember that it was an entire year of a lot of not very little sleep and a lot of work. So I would wake up super early, work out, try to get to my W-2 by 6:30 or 7 a.m. because I had that flexibility. Because I work at a clinic where I could do that. And then I would try to get out, see all my patients, and get out by 3 o'clock or so. And then I still had enough time to go on showings or help out Diego and Victor, that were the team leads at that time, with anything that they needed, because I also wanted to show them that, hey, I'm available, even though I wasn't that much, but hey, I'm available. And that
Mhm.
way, because the thing about it being a realtor is that you have to get connected with a top team in order to not only learn from them, but also have access to these deals, and learn while working those deals. So I wanted to let them know, hey, I am available. Even though I'm part-time, I am available. So it was 4 a.m., workout, go to my job. Then the rest of the afternoon, it was all realtor related. And then on the weekends, it was all realtor. And I did that for an entire year. And, I remember 6 months into it, 8 months into it, I saw, things picking up a little bit. And Diego's like, okay, well, when are you going to quit? And I was like, dude, I can't quit. He's like, no, like you have to do this full time. And so we came up with a plan. And really the biggest thing, if there's anybody out there considering this, make sure that you have at least 6 months of expenses saved up, right? To give you some runway. And then also have maybe a couple of homes under contract before you make that leap. And so after a year, in March of 2022, I made the decision to take the leap and go full time. And I haven't looked back. In 2023, I sold 32 homes, which was my full calendar year as a full time agent. And then 2024 now, I'm on pace to sell 50 or more. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's probably the best decision that I've ever made. I've grown a ton.
Mhm.
I've been out of my comfort zone so many times, especially at the beginning, and going back to Diego's point, like it doesn't matter what age you are. When I quit, I was 36, right? So you would think like, what's a 36-year-old doing? Like changing careers? You're too old to do this. Putting all these videos on Instagram, like acting silly and stuff. Like, no, who cares? I mean, if anything, it took me, the way I see it is that it took me 36 years of my life to realize where I needed to be in, where I wanted to go, and that's okay. I mean, for some people, for Diego, it was a lot earlier, but for some other people, it's a little bit later, and that's okay. But I finally feel kind of at home, and I know that this is what I want to continue to be doing, because it's going to set me up for me and my family for the long term. But it may be at 23, and maybe at 25, maybe at 36, and maybe at 40. But it's never too late. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's setting you up for a lot of success, and I have seen the efforts that you've put in and the commitment that you've put into certain strategies too, and the long hours. But you've been seeing the results too, to the point that you've been able to use like that income, right, to be able to get into investments, to get into that small business too, with another member from FI Investors, and being able to continue to grow. And now, as we transitioned from Keller Williams to Realty of America, now with this opportunity of the new brokerage, I feel like there's definitely going to be a lot of opportunity, and you being able to mentor other people as well, so that as they're growing, as they want to help more families within the realtor business, they can do that as well. Now, on your end, and we can wrap up with this, but I just want to share about like the commitment that you had that brings accountability, and then you committed to do YouTube videos as a strategy to share your knowledge, to find clients that way. And share a little bit about that part, because it's something that for any realtor, and this is for any wholesaler, if you're going to be doing real estate actively as a wholesaler or flipper or whatever, you have to commit to something. And Julio committed to YouTube and his social media, but YouTube as a main way to get to find some families. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as cheesy as it sounds, like what I found out through becoming a realtor, and when you're on your own and you don't have a W-2 that you depend on, and that paycheck, you just have to show up, right? And then that paycheck comes in. You could be average and that paycheck comes in, right? But as an entrepreneur, you not only have I honestly think the biggest thing to an entrepreneur, and it sounds very cheesy and you hear it all over social media, but you have to be consistent. It's the biggest. I think that can definitely separate you. Obviously, you have to work hard, but if you can be consistent for a long period of time, you can separate yourself from so many people that are trying to do the same thing, because people give up so easily. And I know that this is easier said than done, but I'll share with you my experience. In 2023 was the year of YouTube. That was one of my goals. And I told Diego, hey, because Diego's my mentor, and I said, hey, this is my commitment, and I will make a video for the entire year, once a week or twice a week, and I cannot deviate from the plan. And I had never really committed to something like not big, but just like to where I was not giving myself an out, and I never saw the power of seeing it on the other end and what it could do for you. And again, I'm in my mid 30s and I've never done, something like this. So anyways, I committed to it from February 1st. I think it was when the first video was released, but I was already making videos all of January, but I had to have like a little catalog in order to start posting. So I think it was about August, that entire 6 months, 7 months, whatever it is, 8 months, I did not receive a single lead. And I can tell you that I called Diego maybe once or twice, and I would tell my girlfriend at the time, now fiance, that I wanted to give up. I didn't want to keep going. I didn't, because, it's so hard. You're spending time and money into this and you don't see any results, right? But isn't that what we learned? Like right when you're about to give up is when you hit the gold, right? And so to give you some background, I didn't get a single deal or phone call. I would get I take that back. I would get phone calls, but there were no good leads. But it was like about rentals. But the very first good lead came in 8 months later of putting in all this work. In that entire year, I only closed 3 deals from YouTube, just 3. But then fast forward to 24, and the power of consistency and doing it every single day. And now I'm on pace to closing. I have 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. I'm on pace to closing 25 deals just from YouTube in 24. So going from
Awesome.
0 the first 8 months, 3 at the end of that year, to now 25 in 24. And that alone, dude, guys, I'm not doing anything. I'm not like super gifted or anything. I just show up every single week. Today, after this call, I'm going to go film because that's a routine. And that's it. Just show up every single week and be consistent. That's it.
Yeah, dude, that is amazing. It's one of those things that consistency is key, not giving up and having that commitment, like you said, for a year, because a lot of people will have given up. And now also being part of Realty of America, we get to share a lot of our knowledge with others. And you've been one of the speakers in our masterminds as a realtor as well. And being able to now help other agents, teach them how you've been doing it. So that is awesome. That's awesome. Well, Julio, thank you so much for showing the audience, telling them your story, inspiring them, because it's definitely one of those things that people can definitely relate, whether they relate to you from the immigrant background or the investor background, figuring out the different levels of partnerships, and even now as a realtor to quitting your job. If people have questions and they want to reach out or connect with you, where can they do so?
I'd say the best place would be Instagram. And my handle is Julio. I forget it. Give me 1 second. It's Julio _ Monagas TX. That would probably be the best way to reach me out, just through Instagram.
Perfect. So through Instagram, people can reach out to Julio _ Monagas TX. Awesome. Awesome, Julio. Well, thank you very much for being part of the FI Investors podcast. Really appreciate it. Can't wait to continue to see you grow. You're definitely an inspiration for many, and you're giving back as well. So that is definitely something that it's something that's honorable too, as a way to inspire people and lifting people up on your way to success. So can't wait to see you again this coming week, of course, since we're both in Austin, but and then also at the Puerto Rico Retreat 2025. So. Yeah. Peace out, Julio. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the FI Investors Podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And share this with a fellow real estate investor who you think would find value in what we do. Until next time.